Bitpanda is a European crypto platform. It's been in the market for over 11 years, over 7.5 million customers. The big goal here is to bring traditional finance in Europe on-chain, doing it in the European way.
Florian Klein is the commercial lead of Bitpanda Web3 and the Vision Project, spearheading Bitpanda's mission to build Europe's most trusted and accessible gateway into the decentralized economy. At the heart of his work lies the Vision ecosystem, including the Vision Token, Vision Chain, and Bitpanda DeFi wallet, designed to bridge the worlds of traditional finance and Web3 with structure, trust, and real utility.
The utility token doesn't work anymore, but everything is coming back to the old school common sense.
It's important to have both, right? Because also as a user, you want to have this impact on the price. This is how you benefit the ecosystem and the price.
Hello and welcome to Build It Up, where AI meets crypto, technology meets humanity, and East meets West. I'm Bill. Before we dive in, I just want to take a moment to say how much I appreciate you being here. If you have been watching this show and haven't subscribed yet, I would really appreciate your support. It helps us keep this conversation going. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Now let's get into it. Thank you, Florian, for joining us. To kick off, can you share us a little bit about what is the Bitpanda business in elevator pitch, and also, how does the vision fit into the Bitpanda?
Bitpanda is a European crypto platform. It's a multi-asset platform, but mostly known for crypto. Been in the market for over 11 years, over 7.5 million customers, and it's a crypto broker, right? So it's all about making access to crypto for European retail users as simple, secure, and as seamless as possible. And about a year and a half ago, we started, or publicly started, our Web3 initiative with sort of the same goal, bringing the next millions of European users on chain. For that, we've launched our own wallet, the Bitpanda DeFi wallet, but we've also launched the Vision Project. So Vision Project, on the one hand, we have the Vision Token, which is our ecosystem token. So you have product utility and benefits in all of the products. For example, on the normal Bitpanda platform, you get a trade fee discount if you pay your fees in Vision. It powers the loyalty program in the DeFi wallet, and so on. Then we have Vision Protocol, which is a multi-chain aggregator, right? So basically it aggregates different routing protocols and it's directly built into the DeFi wallet. And then we've got the big topic coming up, which is I think the most exciting to talk about, which is Vision Chain, which is our own proprietary layer 2 solution built on Ethereum. It's going to be released this year. We're working like behind the scenes like mad already at it. And the big goal here is to bring traditional finance in Europe on-chain. So it's very much about achieving what Base is doing in the US for the European context. So regulation, compliance, all of those things, not as an afterthought, but built directly into the infrastructure from the ground up. Because Europe, there's the saying, right? The world innovates and Europe regulates. So it's specifically built for that use case and that context.
Yes.
And only then really you can convince the big financial institutions, and actually they have enough trust to then move on chain. That's what we're trying to achieve there.
So it sounds like you have a full set of the combo products. Some of them are incumbent and some of them are ready to launch very soon, right?
Yes.
Can we start by Vision Protocol? What does Vision Protocol doing? What kind of product fit over there?
In its current form, it's only directly integrated into the DeFi wallet, right? And it aggregates multiple cross-chain routing protocols and DEXs. Basically, when somebody makes a trade in the DeFi wallet, on the DeFi wallet, you don't specifically select your trading spots. It's all about making it as simple as possible, right? So it's no addresses, no copy pasting, no QR codes. You just click, right? It's the whole idea is you want to create a wallet that feels like an app and not like a developer tool, right? Bringing sort of a Web 2 experience to the whole thing. This is made as like very seamless by Vision Protocol, basically. So we have multiple different routing protocols competing against each other to fulfill the swap that our user wants to make across chains with low slippage, and basically creating the best execution for the customer by making all of these protocols compete with one another. You can think of it a bit like Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I really feel like routing is such a important component for the Web3 because Web3 I think because of the tech nature
Mhm.
and it's so fragmented and
Yes.
people always have to decide which chain, which protocol, etc. But when we as a Web2 user when we travel from Austria to Germany, etc., you don't have to
Mhm.
change your cloud to use your
No.
WhatsApp, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think that's a really good comparison, actually. Yeah. And I think that's all about like that perfectly encompasses this Web2 solution approach, right? At the end of the day, I don't like in our DeFi wallet, yes, you should be able to see what chain an asset is on, but you shouldn't
Mm,
have to worry about it. At the end of the day, I want to abstract everything by asset, right? So if I just want, I don't know, I want to buy Vision, I want the app to automatically suggest what is the best way to get it. And then if you want, in the next step, you can select, no, I want it on Arbitrum or I want it on Ethereum base or whatever, right? So it should be as simple as possible. And you give the people the choice, but the first choice is always, this is our recommendation.
yeah, definitely. And I understand you want to go beyond the routing business, and this is going to be
Mhm.
your start. And on top of that, very soon you will launch the chain, right? So, what's the thesis, behind this chain? I understand, many exchange, leading exchange, they have their chain, like BNB and Base, etc. Do you think your approach will be slightly different with the other platform? Like how you gonna differentiate yourself, especially in European market?
We are our approach is unique, and B, I think we are in a very unique position by being like the Vision Project being so close to Bitpanda, right? So on the
Mm,
one hand,
mm,
it's the regulatory excellence that Bitpanda has been known for the past 11 years
yeah.
that we can sort of build on, and the expertise we have in house. But it's also the institutional contacts, right? Bitpanda has partnered with major banks like Raiffeisen, Societe Generale, Deutsche Bank, right? So obviously we're talking to all of them already about tokenization projects. And by creating this sort of Web2, Web3 intercepted world here, I think we can provide quite a unique ecosystem, right? Because at the end of the day, there's already really interesting projects out there like Tangent Network or something, right? For like
Mm,
interbank settlement. So very private approach to TradFi on chain. But I think what's needed is to also provide that bridge then to the global DeFi economy, right? Because that's where the economic activity is already happening, right? And you want to connect those worlds, and you want institutional players to provide liquidity, and then you have the Bitpanda interfaces, being the normal Bitpanda app or the Bitpanda DeFi wallet, where you already have millions of retail customers that can then interact with those assets and those solutions, right? So it's more of a Vision Chain will become the infrastructure layer for all of the Bitpanda operations
mm.
and be able to just directly lock into that, right? Obviously, that's also something that's going to be very attractive to DeFi builders because you're not launching into a completely empty ecosystem. You're launching into an ecosystem that already has millions of users.
I think Bitpanda built a very good reputation as
Mm,
a regulatory friendly, savvy platform for
mhm.
many years, right? And but it's always a little bit, risky getting to the open finance like Web3.
Yes.
So how are you gonna balance those? And I wonder, for Vision Chain going forward, is it gonna be KYC based or is it gonna be like pure permissionless?
We like to say it's going to be open with controls, right? So
Mm,
it's not going to be fully permissionless. I think that's just not something that is going to work with the European regulations. But
yeah.
we want to take the best parts of Ethereum grade openness and sort of combine them. So I think it's there's controls where they have to be, and it's open where it makes sense. Obviously we've got to follow regulations like Mika, Dora, even like the GDPR, right, the data protection regulation. And then
Mm,
you want privacy features on the chain as well, because I mean, yes, doing like bank transfers or even like interbank trading on chain sounds very nice, but then if you can always see what the other person's like bank balance is, that's not great, right? So I
yeah.
think it's about taking a bit of a pragmatic approach to
Mm, mm.
openness and security where it makes sense.
So can I understand going forward, if there are some user who want to use the chain, they
Mhm.
have to be the Bitpanda user for the first step, or they can just do a very light KYC to be on board on the Vision chain directly.
They will be able to onboard with the Vision Chain and the decentralized applications built on Vision Chain directly, right?
Mm,
Which
mm,
will obviously be a lot lighter on KYC. The Bitpanda users, this will sort of just be like the prime distribution layer, right? We're also building a launch pad within our wallet. And then obviously that will sort of be the distribution layer for new assets. So there will be a benefit to using the Bitpanda product, but it will also we also want like global DeFi audiences and global DeFi builders to build on the chain.
I think definitely, from developer perspective, they would love to capture the opportunity of the Bitpanda ecosystem
Mhm.
user already, right? Millions level over there, and all of them are with high value. But also, I
Yes.
understand that as an ecosystem, you have to have a savvy technology to attract them, right? So could you also
Mhm.
comment on like what would be the technology infrastructure differentiation for this layer two as well?
I can't go into too much detail yet because we have an announcement coming up and I don't want to
No
spoil
problem.
anything. It's going to be it's not our own layer 2 stack, right? So we're going with a proprietary rollup, but then adding our own compliance and regulation features, right? It's going to
Mm.
be a high performing sequencer and there's going to have to be some like AML and sanction screening in between there, but I don't want to go into too much details on the tech just yet.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, very look forward to the launch. And I have an extra question, regarding the developers. I think,
Mhm.
for the developers, they're kind of, very degen developer who,
Yes.
are into the DeFi, etc. But also, we come across a lot of more institutional developers or builders.
Mhm.
They have their real world assets already, right? They want to
Yes.
build on chain and then, to expand this fintech distribution innovation. How do you see the RWA approach and innovation happening on Vision Chain, after its launch? And how do you see the edge, from your ecosystem?
I think in the first step, also from like talking to a lot of European institutions, when you look at the market in Asia and in the US, you get this feeling like, oh, we're kind of late already. But then you talk to European financial institutions and you're like, oh, okay, maybe we're just quite early, right?
Yeah.
It
Depends on which benchmark you're comparing.
exactly right. So it's always a
Yeah.
bit slower, right? And also I think the regulatory clarity when it comes to tokenization in Europe is just not there yet. I think the really interesting first step is bringing the RWAs and the assets people have on chain and then allowing them to borrow against it. I think that like DeFi lending and borrowing based on existing assets is going to be really interesting, right? So, for example, a Bitpanda user could borrow against their balance and then
Mm.
earn yield on top of that. When it comes to developers, obviously there's going to be incentive programs and grants for developers. So we definitely also want the degens, right? I mean that's just where the economic activity mostly is for now. But yeah, they're going to be incentivized in Vision Token, and yeah, we also want them to build use cases and utilities for the token itself in all of those products.
Basically, the RWA from your pipeline will cover from like stablecoin, equity, bonds, or all those, depends on like what kind of builders they want to deploy on your chain, right, in the future.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we're really open to anything, right? Also,
Mm-mm.
real estate, I think, could be really interesting, but I think it's going to be traditional, like financial products, credit, and stuff like that. That in the first step are really interesting for institutions. I think the whole discussion around tokenized bank deposits and deposit tokens versus stable coins is also really interesting. I think I mean JP Morgan and Base are already trying stuff like that out with sort of their own JP Morgan token, which does offer a bit of like some benefits compared to stable coins, right? Because you can actually generate more yield on them. But those then really are more the inter-institutional use cases at this point. So I think there's so many cool ideas out there, but I think you also have to be careful that you're not just doing the same thing you would already be doing in TradFi and just putting
Mm.
like a crypto sticker on it and only doing what actually then makes sense and where the crypto and the blockchain innovation can really support.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of RWA are just doing this for the sake of a new concept. But in the
Yes.
end, most of them, just a few, there's no new value add, right? And that is why, the stablecoin become the most popular RWA so far,
Yeah.
because people found that, stablecoin is really, 100x faster than the Swift in a sense.
Exactly, right. And at the end of the day, it's also, especially with big institutions, you're not giving them anything really new, right? It's just fiat on chain. If it's
Yes.
one-to-one back, especially, right, then you don't need to convince them of really trying anything new. It's just a different technological backbone, right? And I think
Yes.
that's also what's really like attractive to institutions there as well.
You mentioned that to enable all different builders, they will get an incentive of the
Isn't
VSN token. It's from my understanding, it's not that easy to launch a token, especially for you as a regulatory player in
yeah.
Europe. But now, like not only you launch it, but also you want to utilize it as an incentive. Can you
Mhm.
talk about the whole journey? How you come up with this idea, and now like how you're gonna run this VSN as an incentive toolkit for the whole ecosystem?
The token is already launched. We launched in
Yes.
July of last year, and it was actually a merge of our two previous assets. We had two previous tokens at Bitpanda. One was called Pantos, which was a multi-chain research program, and then we had Best, which was the Bitpanda ecosystem token, which was a loyalty program, but really very much stuck to the one platform, right? And then we decided to combine those two communities, and also the knowledge gained from the research program to create one asset that can actually go beyond borders, and the borders of our own ecosystem, and be really DeFi ready. And yeah, I mean, it's been quite an interesting journey. I mean, you've seen the market, obviously. We've had more fun times there as well. But at the end of the day, the whole point of the token is that it's a ticket to the success of the entire ecosystem. We already have a revenue sharing component for all of the utilities and all of the products we're building. And
Mhm.
that will then get especially interesting, obviously, for Vision Chain. So a share of the profits generated through Vision Chain, be it sequencer profits, deal flow profits, or just revenue share from the products built on Vision Chain, is going to go directly into buybacks and burns for the token, which then makes that more attractive, obviously, which then makes the ecosystem grants and incentives more attractive, right? So I think it's really about creating a system and the flywheel that reinforces itself, and then you need to provide the product utility and then spin it up.
You mentioned, the buyback and the revenue sharing. Do you
Mhm.
think it's becoming a sort of a movement that, if a token really want to prove itself and have a long sustainable appreciation of the market cap, like they have to behave like a value player. Like you have
Yes.
to, direct your economic benefit either in revenue sharing, dividend, or, in buyback.
Absolutely. I think we are moving a lot more into that world, right? Obviously, there's always going to be like purely hype-based tokens, but I think what we're seeing more and more is that utility doesn't like drive price that much, right? There
Mm,
needs to be economic support. And I mean, all of the like platform tokens, especially if it's OKB, if it's BNB, all of them are like heavily supported by the revenues from the ecosystem. And I think that trend will just continue. I think it's not just about the buybacks themselves, but it's
mm,
about providing validation for the economic system behind it. I think it's actually a part of crypto growing up a bit, right? Because yes, you can do buybacks and they can have an effect on the price. But at the end of
mm.
the day, I see it a bit more like a company's quarterly results, right? Where, hey, this is the revenue we actually generated through this, right? And the proof is then seen in the buyback and burn mechanism or in the dividend mechanism, right? So I think it's just about moving a bit more into direction of that, right? I think it's a part of crypto growing up, but yes, I think platform and ecosystem tokens will always need to be now heavily supported monetarily.
Basically, the utility token doesn't work anymore, but the value capture and economic benefit, capture those type of thing, is getting important, right? So everything is coming
Yes.
back to the old school common sense in a
Yes.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, the utility, I think it's important to have both, right? Because also as a
Yes.
user, you want to have this impact on the price, and giving a user a utility that then also generates revenue. I think that's what it's all about, right? Because nobody just wants to hear spend some money there and then the token price will go up. People want to be a part of the project, and that's what the utility really is for, to give them the direct connection to this is how you benefit the ecosystem and the price.
Yeah, I think, one of the most popular utility token is US dollar. But US dollar, as a currency with the inflation, even the utility is very well, but it doesn't stop it to depreciate over the time, right? So
Yeah,
definitely,
absolutely.
value capture will be super important in future.
I mean, maybe an interesting point to the US dollar thing, right? There's also
Mm,
something with the Vision ecosystem and the Vision chain ecosystem specifically, we want to create a euro-denominated DeFi ecosystem. If you're a European user, over the past, I don't know, year, 18 months, you've been earning money or you've been earning yield on US dollar. You still pretty much lost money because of the currency value fluctuations, right?
mm,
So
mm.
I think that is also one of the opportunities, creating this euro ecosystem. So also the gas for the chain will be paid in euro stable coins. I think that's also an edge we will have then.
I have a side topic about stablecoin as one of the pioneer of the RWA. How do
Hmm.
you see the euro stablecoin collaboration in your ecosystem, and how do you see euro stablecoin as a category, the growth in the future?
I think I don't want to say it's about to explode, but I think with Europe always being like slightly behind the US and Asia, and at the end of the day, when we're talking about money, people still like using their own currency. And I
Mm,
mean the euro, like European Union being like what 500 something million inhabitants. I think it's only going to go up from here. I think euro denominated stable coins are here to stay. I think
mm,
there's some really, really good projects out there already, also fully MiCA compliant, like for example, Société Générale Forge with Euro convertible. But yeah, I think what they need is this ecosystem for actual like DeFi use in Euro before it gets really, really interesting, because that's where the economic activity is right now. And
yeah.
if we can bring institutions into that and institutional liquidity into that, then I think yeah, it's a good future for euro-backed stablecoins.
So you think it's at the beginning of the hockey stick growth?
Yeah, yes, I
Mm.
think so.
Awesome. Yeah. If we take one step back to have a holistic view of the vision, the ecosystem you are managing, how do you
Mhm.
see the vision's mission? And also, how do you see vision's growth and outlook in next like 24 months?
I mean, I think the vision is bringing Europe on chain
Mm,
and doing it in the European way, right? So that means trust, compliance, regulation built in from the ground up, right? Europe going the right way, not the fast way, kind of,
mm, mm,
and what we can do to create that ecosystem and to support that. And I mean, the next 24 months is in crypto, as you know, that's ages. But with Vision Chain launching this year, I think the next 24 months are going to be dominated by big projects with European financial institutions on our side. We are obviously in our wallet, we're developing a lot of cool new things. We've got quite a few cool projects coming up there, the Launchpad, all of that. I think you'll see the ecosystem clicking together and the flywheel really start spinning. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very good 24 months.
And my last question for Vision would be, how do you see, it's gonna reshape the tokenized finance and tokenized finance roadmap in Europe, and how do you see the competition landscape over there? Let's say, in the US, Coinbase ended up finding that the competitor is Robinhood, and also
Hmm.
both of them they find that the Nasdaq becomes a competitor as well because they create a lot of IVIT over there, right?
Hmm.
So, I think in US market, it become a very hybrid, comparative landscape. And how do you
Yes.
think in Europe? I mean, like you already built up a very phenomenal leading position over there. And how do you see, you will reshape the tokenized finance and what will be the competition landscape over there?
I mean, I think on the retail side, it'll be really, really connected to the success of Bitpanda as a platform and
Mm,
as a brokerage service. I think on the institutional landscape, our approach is a lot more open and collaborative than projects like Base, right? So I think maybe it's about creating interconnected DeFi ecosystems in Europe more than trying to become the dominant one. But I think in terms of the combination of factors being regulatory excellence and institutional trust, as well as partnerships. I mean, Bitpanda has also partnered with a lot of major sports brands, from AC
Mm,
Milan to PSG to Arsenal
awesome.
FC. And if we then also make that connection, then I think it's going to be really successful. But I think it's going to be very interesting for tokenization. And I think the first step will always be bringing institutional liquidity on chain, and then
Mm.
sort of creating those use cases before we really get into the everyday tokenization. So I want to tokenize my own house and sell a share of it, that sort of thing. Those are very nice ideas. I don't think neither the market nor the regulation in Europe is ready for that yet. But I think that's why the infrastructure game for now is so important.
I really like the mission you just shared, bring the whole Europe
Yeah.
on chain. Yeah, it's very
Yes.
punchy and clear.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, crypto, but I think traditional finance needs the Web3 backbone to
Mm.
become better, right? And we're seeing that in so many things, right? Like even if you're talking about stuff like prediction markets, at the end of the day, those are just short-term futures, right? So I think it's just a new approach to the same thing. And now obviously we're seeing a lot of the funnier and sillier stuff on there, but I think commodities trading, I think also like futures trading on traditional assets and RWAs via like a prediction market system is also going to be a revolution for those markets, moving away a bit from the sports betting side of it. But I think that's just one thing that's really moving ahead. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting.
Our audience, most of them are between the age of 20 to early 30. And do
Mhm.
you have any advice, to them? I mean, we're in such a dynamic paradigm shift area, right?
Yeah.
With AI and crypto and also a lot of geopolitical change
Mhm.
regarding, what kind of majors they should choose and what kind of, industries they want to step into. What would be your advice?
I mean, I think AI definitely here is the biggest disruptor, right? I think if you want to build your own app and if you want to create something in this space, I think the time is now, right? I think we are, sadly or not, right? I mean, you can have your own opinion on that, but I think we are moving in a direction where in 5 years, basically anybody will be able to vibe code whatever they want, right?
Yes.
So I think
Yeah.
if you want to do that, then the time is now. But I think at the end of the day, like ideas and the human aspect in applications and in products is going to be more and more important. So I think going into more the creative fields, because yes,
Mm.
you can get your recommendations and your creative ideas from ChatGPT, but I think that's something where the human touch will stay relevant for longer. When it goes to industries and also just when it goes to trends in crypto, I think I wouldn't pivot too much, right? I think a lot of people, they do DeFi last year, RWA now, and now they're moving into privacy and then prediction markets. And then I think that's fine, right? Going with the trends. But I think if you wanna create something real, you gotta pick one lane and stick with it.
Chasing the hype usually doesn't work, right? You would rather end it
No,
up as lagging behind.
exactly, right? Because if you're chasing, you're already exit liquidity.
Yes, yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And also I agree with your first point, regarding like how to be savvy in a AI age. It's very easy to tell, some article very well said, but there's no human attachment over
Yeah,
there. You can tell, right? This is an AI article from a first glance. And I feel
yeah.
like, being a good storyteller can be able to ask good questions and also with good
Mhm.
taste, and also very savvy at ideation. Like those type of things would be super important to the younger generation, to all of us in future.
Absolutely. And I mean, that also doesn't mean you shouldn't use AI, right? You definitely
No.
should.
Mm.
Everybody should be
Yes.
using it and try to learn as much of it as possible, right? I think even
Yeah.
just discussing ideas and concepts, like, and you can literally like voice chat discuss, right?
Mm.
With a large language model can be very helpful. But I think there's always going to be that difference, like you said, adding the human touch and making sure that it's actually what you want to say and not just putting some inputs and some prompts in there and then yeah, copy pasting and sending it out. Yeah, I think it's not going to be I mean that this is an old saying already, right? I didn't come up with this, but you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody using AI better than you, right? So I think
Yeah.
really diving deep into it and seeing where you can add something and where you can add that human touch and connection, I think that's what it's going to be all about.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you, Florian. Such a great sharing, and appreciate your time today.
Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching Build It Up. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and share it with a friend. And if you'd like to catch more stories and insights, you can follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and of course, right here on YouTube. I'm Bill. See you in the next one.